What if I told you that one of the most iconic resorts ever built on the Las Vegas Strip is quietly sliding toward a turning point that could reshape the entire casino industry? Caesars Palace, once the symbol of untouchable luxury and endless demand, is now facing falling profits, thinning crowds, and pressure that has been building for years behind the scenes. Revenue is slipping. Net income has dropped nearly 20%. Occupancy is softening in ways the Strip has not seen in years. And that is only what the public numbers reveal. Today we break down 10 warning signs that Caesars Palace may be closer to a major shift than anyone on the Strip wants to admit. Number 10. The lobby feels bigger than it used to. Walk into Caesars Palace during a Tuesday afternoon and something feels off. The marble is still polished. The columns still tower overhead. The Roman statues still guard the entrance like they have for nearly 60 years. Nothing about the physical space has changed, but the energy has. The crowds that once packed this lobby shoulder to shoulder have thinned out, and you can feel it. Las Vegas welcomed roughly 38.5 million visitors in 2025, down 7.5% from the year before. That is the sharpest drop since record-keeping began in 1970, outside of the pandemic. And Caesars sits right in the middle of that decline. The resort still draws people during big weekends and major events. But outside those windows, the lobby stretches out in a way it never used to. You notice more empty seats, more open floor space, more silence where there used to be noise. It is a subtle shift, but it tells a bigger story. This was not supposed to happen. Las Vegas had just come off 2 consecutive record years: the Super Bowl, Formula One, massive convention seasons. And yet, here we are. When a place built to feel electric starts to feel hollow, you know something deeper is happening. And that something starts with the guests themselves. Because once visitor behavior shifts, the entire business model starts to wobble. And the next sign shows exactly how that wobble begins. Number 9. Shorter stays are becoming normal. There was a time when a Caesars Palace trip meant 3 nights minimum. You would check in on a Thursday, settle into your room, hit the casino, eat at a steakhouse, catch a show, and do it all again the next day. That rhythm defined the Vegas experience for decades, but in 2025, that rhythm is breaking. Guests are trimming their stays. One-night visits and quick weekend stopovers are becoming the new normal. The data tells the story clearly. According to CoStar Group, midweek revenue per available room on the Strip fell about 11% in 2025. Visitors are not just spending less time in Vegas. They are shortening their trips to the bare minimum. And for a property like Caesars, which was designed around long, immersive stays, that shift cuts deep. Shorter visits mean fewer meals at resort restaurants, fewer hours on the casino floor, fewer impulse decisions that drive profit. The entire economic model depends on guests lingering. And lingering is exactly what people have stopped doing. Economists point to inflation and rising travel costs as the main drivers. Budget-conscious travelers are not cutting Vegas out entirely. They are just compressing everything into tighter windows. Get in. Get the experience. Get out before the bill spirals. For Caesars, that compression squeezes revenue from every angle. But if shorter stays are quietly hurting the bottom line, the next sign on this list hides the damage even better. Number 8, room rates look high, but floors are closed. Here is something most guests never think about. You book a room at Caesars Palace, and the rate feels steep. $300, $400 a night during a peak weekend. It looks like demand is strong. But behind that price tag, something else is happening. Entire sections of the hotel are sitting offline. Caesars Palace operates nearly 4,000 rooms spread across 6 towers. And right now, the company is preparing to pull close to 1,000 of those rooms out of service for a full renovation of the Augustus Tower, one of its most popular buildings. Another 500 rooms in Julius Tower and roughly 1,200 in Palace Tower are scheduled for overhauls by 2027. Meanwhile, Caesars' overall Las Vegas occupancy has already slipped from about 96% to around 92%. That is roughly 90,000 fewer room nights sold across their properties in a single period. When you remove rooms from the supply and raise rates on whatever is left, it creates the appearance of demand. But the math underneath tells a different story. Fewer available rooms plus lower occupancy still equals less total revenue coming through the door. The room rate number looks strong in a headline, but it is masking a softer reality. And for guests paying premium prices to stay in towers that have not been updated in nearly a decade, the disconnect becomes hard to ignore. Especially when guests start noticing that the experience no longer matches the price. And that disconnect shows up first in one place: service. Number 7. Service feels thinner. Luxury hotels live and die by one thing above everything else: consistency. The feeling that every interaction, from check-in to room service to a question at the front desk, meets a standard. And at Caesars Palace, that standard is starting to wobble. It is not dramatic. There are no viral horror stories, but there is a quiet erosion happening that guests are picking up on. Wait times are stretching. Staff presence on the floor has thinned. The personal attention that once defined a Caesars stay now feels more mechanical, more transactional. Industry reviews have flagged the pattern. Staffing challenges across the hospitality sector have hit Caesars hard, leading to longer waits, limited amenities, and a noticeable dip in guest satisfaction. Strip workers themselves are noticing the change. A bellman at a nearby resort told Reuters that tips have dropped significantly, not because guests are stingier, but because there are fewer staff interactions to tip for. Extra shifts at hotels and restaurants have started disappearing. For Caesars, this creates a dangerous loop. You charge luxury prices. Guests expect luxury treatment. When they do not get it, the perceived value collapses, and they leave with a story that travels fast. The service gap might seem small right now, but in a market where competitors are investing billions in guest experience, small gaps become large ones quickly. And if the service outside the room feels thinner, the energy inside the casino tells an even more troubling story. Number 6. The casino floor is losing energy. The Caesars Palace Casino has always been one of the most magnetic rooms on the Strip. More than 1,300 slot machines, nearly 200 table games, a sports book that feels like its own arena. But walk through it today and something has shifted. The room is not empty, far from it, but the energy is different, less spontaneous, less charged. More people passing through on their way to somewhere else instead of settling in for a session. That change is not just a feeling. It shows up in the numbers. Caesars reported that its Las Vegas net income dropped nearly 20% in 2025. Table game performance was hit especially hard, with hold percentages falling sharply during the summer and costing the company tens of millions in a single quarter. The broader Strip is seeing the same pattern. Even though gaming revenue held relatively steady overall, the visitor mix has changed. Budget-conscious players, the ones who used to fill the mid-range tables and feed the slots for hours, are pulling back. Higher income guests are still spending, but they cannot fill the void left by millions of everyday gamblers who are tightening their wallets. For a casino like Caesars, atmosphere is everything. When the floor buzzes, it attracts more play. People feed off each other's energy. A hot craps table draws a crowd. A crowded blackjack pit makes everyone want a seat. When it quiets down, that magnetism fades and people drift. And right now, the drift is noticeable, especially during one particular time of the week that is raising the loudest alarm. Number 5, midweek is practically silent. Weekends at Caesars still feel like Vegas. Friday night energy, Saturday crowds spilling from the pool to the casino to the restaurants. Sunday checkouts creating that familiar rush. But step inside on a Tuesday or Wednesday and the contrast is jarring. The hallways feel emptier. The restaurants run quieter. The casino floor operates at half tempo. This is not just a Caesars problem. It is a strip-wide crisis, hiding in plain sight. Location data from Placer.ai confirms that Las Vegas foot traffic has tilted heavily toward weekends, while midweek demand has softened dramatically. Convention attendance in 2025 stayed below pre-pandemic levels, leaving thousands of midweek hotel rooms that once filled with business travelers struggling to find guests. Weekend occupancy on the Strip frequently climbs above 90%, but midweek occupancy often drops into the mid-70s. That gap is enormous. For Caesars, midweek used to be the backbone. Business travelers, convention spillover, and extended leisure trips kept the property humming 7 days a week. Without that steady base, the resort operates in bursts instead of sustained momentum. And bursts do not pay for a property this size. The midweek silence is a symptom of something larger, though, because while the calendar exposes the gap, the brand itself is facing a different kind of pressure altogether. Number 4, the brand is aging faster than it is updating. Caesars Palace turns 60 this August. That is a staggering milestone for any resort, let alone one on the Las Vegas Strip where reinvention is survival. And to its credit, the property is investing. New presidential villas in the Coliseum Tower, sky suites in the Octavius Tower, a redesigned entrance and casino dome, plans for a 46,000 square foot day club. These are real moves. But here is the tension. While Caesars renovates in phases, competitors have already leapfrogged. Wynn completed a $200 million room renovation, touching all of its nearly 2,700 rooms. Resorts World opened as a fully modern property from the ground up. The Cosmopolitan continues to set the tone for the younger, experience-driven traveler. Caesars is playing catch-up in a market that does not wait. Several of its towers have not seen a full refresh in close to a decade. Guests booking those older rooms are paying today's prices for yesterday's product. And in a city where perception is everything, that gap between price and product becomes a reputation problem. The renovation pipeline is ambitious, running through 2027, but until those projects finish, millions of guests are walking into rooms that do not match the name on the building. And when the experience does not match the expectation, something else starts slipping, and it is measured in dollars. Number 3, spending per guest is sliding. Even when guests show up, they are spending differently. That is the quiet reality reshaping Caesars Palace right now. Fewer impulse bets at the tables, fewer expensive dinners, fewer bottles at the club. The visitors are still coming, but their wallets are tighter than they have been in years. Caesars' overall Las Vegas revenue dropped nearly 5% in 2025, and net income fell close to 20%. Strip workers report the change firsthand. A culinary workers union official told Reuters that the slowdown does not start with big layoffs. It starts with vanishing hours, fewer extra shifts, thinner tip pools. Part-timers and on-call staff feel it first. Placer.ai data revealed something even more telling. The median household income of visitors to the Strip has been climbing, which means lower and middle-income travelers are being priced out entirely. The guests who remain spend more per capita, but there are far fewer of them. And that math does not favor a massive property like Caesars that was built to profit from volume, not just top-tier spenders. When spending per guest slides, it does not show up in a single headline. It shows up everywhere, in food and beverage revenue, in gaming yield, in hotel ancillary income. It is a slow bleed, and it is one of the hardest problems for any resort to fix. But the response from corporate might actually be making it worse. Number 2, corporate cost-cutting is showing. When Eldorado Resorts completed its $17.3 billion acquisition of Caesars Entertainment, the company inherited something massive alongside those iconic properties, nearly $12 billion in debt. That number has barely moved. As of the end of 2025, Caesars still carried roughly $11.9 billion in outstanding debt. And when you are servicing that kind of obligation, every line item gets scrutinized. The results are visible if you know where to look. Maintenance cycles have stretched. Upgrades that might have happened years ago are still in the pipeline. Staffing has tightened across multiple departments. The company posted a full-year net loss of $502 million in 2025, compared to a loss of $278 million the year before. On paper, renovations are happening. In reality, the pace of reinvestment has not kept up with the speed at which the product ages. Guests may not be able to articulate exactly what feels different, but they sense it. A slightly worn carpet here, a slower elevator response there, one fewer attendant at the pool. None of these things alone are deal breakers, but stacked together, they erode the feeling that Caesar's Palace is still the gold standard. Cost-cutting is not inherently bad. Every company does it. But when it becomes visible to the guest, it stops being strategy and starts becoming reputation damage. And that leads directly to the biggest warning sign of all. Number 1, Caesars was built for a different Vegas. This is the truth underneath everything else on this list. Caesar's Palace was not designed for what Las Vegas has become. It was built for predictable crowds, long stays, high rollers who came back season after season, convention traffic that filled midweek gaps, a steady stream of international visitors who treated the resort like a destination unto itself. That version of Vegas is fading. Today's Las Vegas runs on shorter visits, price-sensitive, travelers, and experience hopping. Guests bounce between properties instead of planting themselves at one resort for an entire trip. International tourism, especially from Canada, which was the city's biggest feeder market, dropped sharply in 2025. Airlines have scheduled 7% fewer seats into Las Vegas for early 2026. The visitor base is shrinking and shifting at the same time. Caesars' own CEO has acknowledged the pattern, noting that the property thrives during peak events and big conferences, but struggles during the shoulder periods in between. That is the structural mismatch. A nearly 4,000-room resort built for constant, reliable demand is now operating in a market defined by spikes and valleys. The renovation plans are real. The brand still carries weight. But until the model adapts to a visitor who stays shorter, spends more cautiously, and has more options than ever before, Caesar's Palace will keep running into the same wall. The resort was not built for this version of Vegas, and that mismatch is the warning sign that matters most. It does not mean Caesars is finished. It means the era it was designed for is over, and what comes next will depend entirely on whether the brand can evolve fast enough to meet a city that has already moved on without it.